Hi, and thank you for tuning into the Fight Is All podcast. I'm Seth, and in this episode I will talk with a person I can easily call good friend now. I met Coach Ed Bavelock on Sydney IMMA coaching qualification course in April 2019, and having the habit to try reading the fighting styles of the people I meet, observing their posture and moves, I thought to myself wrestler. However, later when we reached the striking part of the course, I mentioned his awesome form into his striking combos. Later I found out that Ed Bavelock, in addition to his wrestling background, is also United States kickboxing champion and passionate about the art of Muay Thai. As a coach, Ed Bavelock coached a large range of people from their starting the combat sports up to the UFC cage, and is now Australian national team coach. His toughness, experience, and no bullshit approach to the sport makes him perfect to that. And to be honest, if I was still fighting, I would love to have Coach Ed in my corner. He's now coaching at Kimmika MMA in Melbourne, and you can contact him by the links in the description, which are kimmikamma.com or in Instagram, kimmikamma coach, one word. To be honest with the chronology, this was the first episode of the Fight Is All podcast I ever recorded. The night after the intense first day of the last MMA coaching course in Sydney, we went with Coach Ed to chill a bit and have a coffee. Being passionate about the MMA sport, we turned a quick coffee break into intense 2 hours conversation. Then we went to record the podcast, and after we got hungry and went to eat some burgers and spent 2 more hours talking MMA. I enjoy my conversations with Coach Ed, whom I feel as a great friend now, and after we finished the Sydney Town scouting session and seeing the amount of talent available in Australia, we promised that we will produce the first IMMAF world champion from Australia. So hope you enjoy and learn from this episode as much as I did.
Why do we fight? To protect home and family. To preserve balance and bring harmony. For our kind, the true question is, what is worth fighting for? The Fight Is All podcast.
Okay, we're on. So first, thank you for accepting to do that.
My pleasure, Seb.
Okay, so can you just give me the story of how you get involved in combat sports and all the brief story about your experience from taking it from where you are and bringing it up to your coaching experience now?
Okay, I started as a kid as a wrestler in the United States, in the state of Massachusetts, where I grew up in Plymouth. I was a school wrestler, high school wrestler. I was captain of my high school team, Plymouth Carver Blue Eagles. From there, I went right into a karate dojo. It was a local karate dojo. I did karate, and from karate, I went and a lot
What kind of karate?
We did goju then.
Is that full contact karate?
No, it was just a traditional karate, but we did full contact sparring.
Okay.
And we did some full contact tournaments, but we did light contact tournaments also.
Okay.
Yeah. And from that went into kickboxing. And from my kickboxing, I went into Muay Thai, which was my greatest moment of education and enlightenment, I guess, in martial arts and in combat sports. I had my base in wrestling and karate, but when I went to Thailand, it was when my life changed dramatically. And I always knew I wanted martial arts to be my life, but it also showed me that you could have a different life with martial arts and with fighting. You know, and also the way that I learned and was educated in martial arts, especially traditional martial arts, and even in the wrestling, on the wrestling mat with that very military drilling type of training, the Thai approach was much more personal and one-on-one and playful, if you will, other than the hard work, which was every day, which
Grinding.
I loved. You know, I wanted that hard training, physical, but the approach was more to enjoy the grind and have fun, be playful, and not try to hurt your training partner. Save your fight for the fight, but expected to fight a lot.
They fight every week. When I was there.
Yeah.
If they're healthy, they fight because that's how they're feeding their families. They don't make much money though, but they fight a lot, so they don't really spar. They play this how they call it, like tip sparring, just sabai.
Stay comfortable. Take it easy.
What kind of wrestling style you was doing?
Well, in the U.S. you do collegiate wrestling, which is sometimes referred to as folk style.
What is the difference of folk style rules with let's say the Olympic freestyle and Greco-Roman? Because back home, wrestling is big where I'm coming from in Bulgaria, but it's freestyle and Greco-Roman. So what's the difference in the rules with the folk style wrestling?
I guess the main difference is the point system.
Yeah.
It would be closer to freestyle than Greco because.
Okay. So you can still touch the legs, right?
Most definitely.
You should.
The majority of your takedown attacks from neutral positions are leg attacks. It's the first thing you learn.
Okay. Yeah.
Single legs, double legs, all day long. Single leg, double leg, high crotches.
Okay.
And then upper body techniques, probably to a lesser degree in a high school environment, a collegiate environment. Although they do exist. Usually in the higher weights, your bigger weights.
Yeah.
And there might be
the guys who don't really want to hit the knee, the heavier guys. Yeah,
exactly.
They're not really shooters. The big guys.
Exactly. Yeah. Big heavy guys.
Yeah. Normally the small guys they shoot. The bigger guys, they go for it. Yeah.
No different.
Yeah. But so it's the point system that is different. I don't know. We don't have the college system.
Yeah.
So we just
like in a collegiate, you wouldn't have the leg laces, and your back points are different.
Okay.
Yeah. And now it didn't exist when I was competing. You have the riding time. You get allocated points for riding time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can't say that I truly understand that. I just understand the riding. Riding was always a part of it, but we didn't get awarded points back then.
Yeah.
We did it to dominate our opponent.
Okay. I get that.
We'd always go for the pin, just like in freestyle or Greco.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So technique-wise, it's more like freestyle wrestling.
Most definitely, yeah.
Generally.
You don't get the glory points. It's more of a grindy wrestle. Also, you're not allowed to lift your opponent without first touching the mat yourself again.
Okay.
Or when I was wrestling. I don't know if it's changed at all. I don't think it has that because they don't want injuries. They want a good,
it's
safe
more like
school sport.
It's more like progression sport towards the big wrestling. More like
no. Look, at an NCAA level, you're doing the same rules as in high school, but it's just a higher level athlete.
Absolutely, yeah, I got that. Yeah. You say you're big in Muay Thai, and first when I met you on the previous coaching course, because you start with showing the wrestling techniques, and you have posture of a wrestler. I can see that, like this guy is a wrestler. But then when I was doing the striking part of the course, and you do your combo, say, oh, this guy has, good moves.
Yeah, I would say, my greatest passion is for striking. So it is the thing I spend most of my thinking about combat is about striking, and I spend most of my combat martial arts studying in striking fights, in boxing, and in Muay Thai and K1. Your high level kickboxing. But I'm still very much drawn to watch and study traditional stadium Muay Thai. when you're drawn into the culture in Bangkok, it's fight culture. It's celebrated.
Yeah.
It's embraced. It's such a natural, real thing. Where sometimes, growing up in the U.S. and then even in Australia, to a lesser extent in Australia, but still exists when you tell somebody what you do. I coach. I'm a fight coach. That's what I do. I train. They say, "Oh, you train cage fighters. You trained in Muay Thai. You were a Muay Thai champion in the U.S." A lot of times, the more cerebral people that you meet will not look at that as a positive thing, and that's they have that problem. I don't. I look at it as a very cerebral pursuit and journey because I think about it all day long, and I have the gift of being able to do it for a profession and to be a coach full time, and I do it 7 days a week.
How you started coaching? So
I started as a coach mainly in Muay Thai and kickboxing in the United States.
I know you had like a good history of coaching. I know you coach people from all levels up to the UFC level. I know you was in UFC corner. Can you tell me about like how you actually started coaching? So how from fighter, from competitor, you start like coaching yourself, like get involved in coaching and make your own team. How you did that?
The first guys I really coached and cornered were in kickboxing and Muay Thai, and they were just a group of guys who I trained with, and they were more like training partners, but I guess I was like the captain of the team in Boston, and they looked to me, and I had one guy who was an ex-Marine, and really, I'll be honest with you, he wasn't the most gifted athlete, but man, he worked hard. He had work ethic to burn, and also he was as tough as nails. He was actually trained to be an underwater welder.
Oh, okay.
So his name's Dave McDermott, and he was a guy who I trained personally, and I was able to take him, from basically from zero, and he won a New England championship. And that's when I knew that I really love this stuff. And I actually fought on the same night that I cornered him.
So you was competing coach when you started.
It was in my blood, and I always liked to be there for my teammates in wrestling. I always liked to be help corner my teammates when we did karate tournaments. But there was always that element missing that I got from full contact that I got sucked into. I got the bug once I was able to taste it, Yeah.
Yeah. So, what would you say your coaching style differs?
I'm drawn to workhorses. I would prefer to train somebody who's willing to work harder than someone who is a natural athlete. And I think that's true for a lot of coaches. I would say majority of coaches would rather have.
Well, I would say might be subjective, but actually the talented guys are the guys that win national championships, but world championships are won by the grinders who are not so talented, but because they're not so talented, they appreciate, and they work harder, work longer as a time, and the grinders are the ones who bring medals from world championships. That's what I think, because the guys who are too talented, they win a national championship, they think it's easy, and they don't appreciate the talent that they have. But the grinders that they just have this this persistence are the ones who actually excel in the sport, because they learn a bit slower, but they just stick to it, and they become masters of the sport, earning medals on world championship. That's That's my my impression from, like, because kind of, like being, like being persistent is also kind of talent.
Oh,
Just sticking to it, and like you might be not so agile in the beginning, but just sticking to it and like keep working, keep grinding, it's kind of talent, like it's gift as well. Everyone wants to be like John Jones in his first training, but it's in 90%, if not more, you probably are not.
Yeah, and two, Zeb, on my coaching journey, I've been very lucky where I have met and been able to work with some very experienced people. But at those times, I understood very quickly that it wasn't so much about, well, it's never about me and them learning my system, but whatever knowledge I had, if I was going to be able to share it with them best or contribute to their journey, I was going to have to fit to their experience. And so, i.e., someone like Brian Ebersol, when I was lucky enough to work with him, I always asked myself every session, what does he need most? How can I help him? And what is his strengths? And so we played to his strengths and then fit whatever my experience was in combat sports, and with my fighting, which was not MMA. We didn't do MMA. I never really did competitive MMA because it didn't exist when I was fighting. I missed it by like 4 years, really. I missed it mainly pathologically. I know pretty much down to the 3-month point in time when I didn't need to fight anymore myself. I always needed to compete as a coach, and when I wanted to transition to it. But when I fought, I had a pathological need to fight. I needed that contact. And, it was almost therapy at that time. But there was a moment in time where I went, I don't really need to do this anymore, but I need to be involved in it. And, I guess I'm lucky in that way that I was able to know myself well enough to go, oh, this isn't about me anymore. I can now give myself to other people. And I think this where we kind of go into a life philosophy. Yeah. And I'm a father of two boys, and they're both teenagers. One of them has a disability, but that we're basically put on this earth not for ourselves, but to be at the service of others. And when we understand that and embrace it, it's like we're free to do whatever we're good at.
Absolutely.
And sometimes, to my wife's chagrin, it doesn't involve making a lot of money, really. I mean, maybe it could. I haven't figured that out yet, but gee whiz, I really get to do something I love on a daily basis. Every single day of the week, I get to do something I love. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a common problem that passionate coaches don't make a lot of money because they're more willing to give and just, to do that. And it's hard to be businessman when you're like a good coach and you're a giver. So the business part of it and the coaching part kind of contradict each other, because if you're a good coach, you want to give as much knowledge, to build these guys. And everyone who is involved in coaching, you're not only a coach, you're a father, mother, sister, psychologist, nutritionist, friend, whatever, everything. And it doesn't end up on training time. These 2-3 hours that we're working with someone, doesn't end. He has so much other things. You're still, like working with and building these guys.
Can I just say something right now?
It's all about you saying stuff.
Yeah. we'd say guys are boys are guys, but I have trained and coached a few girls, females, and it's something that as a federation and as a group of coaches that we want to do more of, especially from an Australian national point of view. I don't think there's enough female competitors, fighters. We'd like to, as a group of coaches, train more females, and we just want to put that out there.
I will tell you, I'm all about female MMA, and my wife was the first MMA fighter in Bulgaria, in my own country. And actually her first opponent, Anita Duganova, if she is listening now, she came after to train in our team.
I'm sorry to say she's probably not listening to us.
She will. She's now probably the best professional MMA fighter in Bulgaria, okay, arguably, and she's really good. And Anita was, I'm telling you because Anita is an example of how you excel in the sport. When she was training, okay, like my wife and her was training, and because of my wife, like when I started, I was the first one who had like a girl team. We have like 6 girls training, and all of them competing.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I have something to say about girl fighters. I have seen boys giving up in a fight, in the ring. I never seen a girl giving up in a fight.
Let's be honest, and how long have you been married?
No, I'm gonna make 9 years. You're putting me in a bad spot now. If I make the wrong.
I'm into my 26th year of marriage, so quitter she is not, for sure. And she's stronger than I am. I look to her for strength, but also I can say that about my mother also, and a strong woman for sure. And we've had on our national team both Amber and Ailish. It's funny that they both have A names because they're both A grade. That I've been, gifted to work with. They're not quitters. They do stay the course. They stay the course, and they might lose, but
they give a fight. They give a hell of a fight.
They go on to the next competition, the next fight. And I want people to know, hopefully there's a prospect female fighter out there going, oh, okay, they're actually saying the words. They want us around. They want us fighting.
Do you have girls training now with you?
I have girl strikers, and we have girl grapplers, but I have no girl fighters. I have had in the past female fighters. So is it? We don't have a lot of them, but I'm open. Where are they?
I think now with this progression in the country that we're starting to build with IMMF, that you have like a CB and A class, like girls that don't have so much experience, girls and boys, wherever, they're very just to come and compete in the sport with people on their level. Because I think, if you want to compete in MMA, it's hard to make the step because the gap between people who just train for themselves and compete is too big. And people who don't have the experience of fighting hardly make that step. So with the CB and A class involved in a progression scheme, like for example CMB class where you don't have ground and pound, like it's more softer rules, and being a structure, you're gonna compete on someone who doesn't have common experience, is the same level as you. Provides chance to these guys and girls, chance to come and try the sport on their own level. And then to excel and to build it to the next level, So I think that's really good chance, for these people actually to get involved and to see that MMA sport is actually fun, and it's like something that you can learn a lot for yourself. Because when you fight, the most thing that you learn is actually for yourself.
Oh, for sure.
Because you have this expression, the truth of fighting. When you fight, that you yourself. Like in your everyday, you can put a mask. You could pretend on your job that you're this guy or that guy, but you cannot pretend who you are when you fight. And that's why, as a coach, sometimes I say to the guys, I know you better than your father and your mother because you can cheat them, but you don't cheat me because when you fight, I know who you really are because you can see someone's character by the way he fights. Like he's a quitter, he's a trickster, or he's like a grinder. It's his character fighting, and you don't have a mask when you fight. It's only you, your opponent, and your real self. And even if before you actually compete, you don't face your real self, because in your everyday life, people who don't actually involved in combat sports, they don't really know themselves. Would you agree with that?
I can't say much about non-martial artists, but I would agree with that. But it's a very biased opinion.
It is,
and I'm very aware that it's very biased. But I guess I think about also what students of mine don't really understand is I learn as much about them, or I know as much about them by what they don't do as by what they do. So when things are going their way and things, they're healthy, they're okay, they're eating right, and everything's good, that's great. But when they don't show up and when they don't tell me the truth, do they really believe that I don't know the truth? When they're making excuses, do they believe that I don't really know the truth? I've learned now at this age not to be offended by that, but to be more part of their journey, or to back away and not be part of their journey if they don't really want it that bad, or maybe they don't have the pathological need to fight, other than to train. So then they can then contribute or be part of the team in that way. Or maybe they have other duties they have to.
Absolutely.
First other responsibilities like looking after family,
Absolutely.
make a living, pay their mortgage, which is a terrible burden when you're trying to be a
absolutely,
a combat
but it's
athlete.
understandable because fighting sports requires so much dedication, because you have to go out there and fight with someone who is trying to kick your ass. What's harder than that?
Yeah, that's why it's so rewarding.
Yeah, but the thing is, I personally, when I coach in my team, I never push anyone to compete, right? Like the way I do, I say that's the competition that I like around, and I let my guys to choose which competition they want to go, and then I make the program to compete on this one. But I never say to someone, it's time for you to go. I wait for them to approach and say, can I compete on this one? I might say no. If you're not ready, like, no. But if you're ready and you say, I want to try that, okay, let's prepare for that. But it cannot be like next week, right? You have to be reasonable time. So we go strong, because I love competing. And coaching gives me this chance to compete when I'm not able anymore. It's just, I'm competing through them. But at the same time, I think competing is the art of winning. That's what it is about. It's not, you don't win every time, but what you actually learn is the art of winning, because winning is art. That's what allows, people with different skills to win. It's not because of their skill or their particular technique, but because they find out the principles of art of winning, which I believe they're similar, no matter what your style are. You might be a striker, you might be more grappler, you might be like more ground guy, but the principles of art of winning are similar, and you have to learn to win, because winning is habit, but also losing is habit.
Most certainly. It's a culture.
It's a culture.
You build a culture of winning, and it takes a lot of hard work to build that. First, the foundation of it, which is just excellent fundamentals, and then onwards to paying attention to the little things, but also investing emotionally. I'm not a human being who can not invest emotionally. If I'm not emotionally connected to a certain athlete, fighter, I can't go on that journey with them, basically. I want to know, what their family life is like. I want to know, I'd love to know their mother and father, brothers and sisters. I want to know those things. I want to have having meals with fighters and your team is very important because you can learn a lot and also share a lot during those meals. That's what's great about fight trips is that's when you build rapport and you bond. They win, lose, or draw. But also I have a recipe that includes on a weekly basis Saturday afternoon, and everybody on my team knows what Saturday afternoon is for, because that's get down time. And either you get down and you help each other get down, and then those that are selfish on the team don't show up on Saturday when they're not preparing for a certain event, then we know that they're about themselves. They're not about the team or about getting better in the long game, the big picture. And then their journey isn't truly martial arts. So the martial arts journey, rather than just a fighter's journey, the martial arts journey is all about your dedication to excellence, and you're looking to maximize your personal, your person. How do I become the best me? But it's then not about just me. You understand that I can't become the best me without being a group of people that want to become the best themselves also, so that it's becoming the best us. And that's what martial arts is, isn't it?
Absolutely.
How can I become what is, the simple act of practicing the best punch you can throw, the dedication and the hard work that comes from doing that over and over again, the repetition, the attention to detail, the hard work, the sweat, the toil. Then even if I'm throwing that punch, how am I throwing it so I don't get hit? And whoa, I got hit 5 times. Oh, I broke my nose. Oh, I cut my head open. I butted heads with the other, my opponent, my teammate, whatever. There's a lot of pain and suffering that goes along with that. But that journey in itself is where you start to learn things about yourself.
Well, isn't it like we have this saying back home, you only learn by suffering?
That's a very Eastern European view of the world.
Yeah, but it's kind of true.
No, it's not just kind of true. It is true. And understand that my last name is a Hungarian name. So, that's the way I was raised, and 2, coming from New England, and I believe Australia has that strong, it's very laconic and it is laid back, but Australia is a very hard working nation. It is built on hard work. There's no question about it. And it has grown from being not a significant economic power into a strong, but also a hard-working country. Building itself up from, and from look at what Australia hits way above its weight in sport. And so they love to play, but they love to play hard, or we love to play hard. I am now what is, as you are, part of this nation, yeah?
Almost.
What is
I'm still permanent resident, still not a citizen. I'm looking forward to it.
That's just a simple piece of surgery that you need to go through.
True.
We're just this is a land of immigrants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of it, because it combines,
Our sport is a complete reflection of that.
absolutely, like all these different backgrounds coming together.
Well, who would think an American bald old man would sit down with a young strapping Bulgarian man?
Not that's young anymore.
And we're talking about martial arts and sports that have such a diverse global background, from sambo that has Russian and Japanese roots, and Muay Thai, and traditional Japanese arts, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which also has Japanese. But here we are in this country that it's a melting pot, like it or not, and get used to it. It's the reality. But our sport is a direct reflection of that.
That's true.
Yeah.
In the same time, all these arts, they're still not MMA by itself. Because to make a good MMA, you have to take piece of each one of them, but to improve them, because MMA is different. For example, if you wrestle, you have to consider the striking. You have to consider the knees and the kicks when you shoot. If you strike, you have to consider not giving your waist. I have this experience when I start switching from kickboxing to combat sambo. I found out that as a kickboxer, we're giving our waist too easy.
We had this conversation. Let's bring it down. We're gonna make some espresso, MMA espresso. So we're gonna get the essence of a pure shot of caffeine. We talked about Habib and his fight with McGregor, and you and I do agree that the reason he hit him with that right hand was because of his wrestling.
Absolutely, yeah.
But that was a strike, and it
was a strike,
and it existed almost in a vacuum.
Yeah.
You tend to think he said it. I don't think so. I think he thought it.
He threw it because he saw the opening. He was not looking for this strike, but
I think he was always looking for it. I think he's been looking for that strike since he was 5 years old. Or maybe when he was wrestling the bear, he really wanted to throw that strike on McGregor.
Might be.
But I agree with you 100%. Is the beauty of MMA is that you can have this competency that opens up the opportunity for other competencies. And without becoming too philosophical, isn't that what life's journey is all about?
We can become philosophical. Yes. You can do whatever you want.
but also, sometimes our opportunities are presented to us at times when we're not prepared to take those opportunities and grasp them.
True.
What did you say to me about somebody? I can't remember. Now I've lost my train of thought on somebody missing their opportunity or their chance. And it wasn't just a technical thing. It was the timing with their life.
Yeah, we were speaking about
a good prospect fighter who could have been.
We was talking about. I was talking about getting UFC after being like battered and have all these wars in your own sport, that like you're just competing local networks as world level professional. But we was talking about because we was talking about IMMF as general pathway that provides this a bit softer style of MMA as amateurs to be able to compete, to get all this competition experience, but don't get this battered by fighting in pro rules with elbows and stuff. Because in the moment when they become world champions or like big champions as amateurs, they have all this combat experience. They're already good, technically good, and they're athletes, but they're not injured. Because we were speaking about that the pathway that was existing up to now in
well, let's look at the current UFC champions. Let's look at the dual champions.
Yep.
Let's look at someone like a Henry Cejudo and his journey. This is the end of his combat sport journey. And how many professional MMA fights has he had? a very small amount.
Absolutely.
Let's look at Daniel Cormier, you know, and they do come from the same base. How many fights has Habib had?
Well, he has quite a few in combat sambo.
Combat sambo.
But it's still combat sambo is still
very
okay,
grappling centric.
Of course, you know.
And you did combat sambo at a very high
level. You know, in combat sambo you don't get scored for striking. Striking is not scored. You can win by KO, but you don't get points. You only get points. It's very weird.
Well, it's not weird because they're looking for you to do certain things and show certain skill sets.
Yeah. Well, the concept behind combat sambo is I don't know how much you're aware about the history of sambo, but
I'm very unaware.
Okay. Give a bit of history. You know, talk. So, combat sambo was created after the First World War. You know, KGB decided they have to make a combat style.
KGB decided this.
Absolutely, yeah. So they decided they need a combat style for the army, for the services.
Okay.
So they appointed 2 KGB officers who already have like a combat sport background, which was mostly judo, because judo at this time was big. So no, one of them was judo and the other guy was kind of wrestler with wrestling background.
Okay.
So these guys are like, they was KGB officers, so they was intelligent guys with combat experience, so there was, you know, like pretty proficient in one. It was more wrestling background, the other was more judo background, but they was good in what they was doing, and they was understanding it was not a sport, it was taking the fight science. So they give them the task to develop separately a combat style, a very interesting approach, by the way, by KGB at this time, to create a combat style for the battlefield. So, an approach that they took, so that's...
minus weapons.
No weapons. Sambo literally means самозащита без оружие, which means self-defense without weapon.
Okay.
That's what it means on Russian.
Karate. And here we sit in Sydney, Australia, having this conversation.
Absolutely.
An American and a Bulgarian.
See how the world comes together. It's weird, eh? So one of those guys, the judo guy, he went in Japan to study the Japanese martial arts. So because he had this task, he was not only trained judo, he trained jiu-jitsu. He was leaning towards the judo side, but still he was exploring the other arts that he can find in Japan, just to put together, not only judo, to create a combat style for the battlefield. The other guy took different approach. He started traveling towards the Soviet republics and started studying the local martial arts. And local martial arts in Eastern Europe and in our area are wrestling based. We have this folk style wrestling. Every nation has its own wrestling style. Yes. So this guy was going, a couple of months, trained with this wrestling master in for example, in Dagestan. He was coming, over the eastern camp and studying these folk arts. And he was systemizing, the thing that weren't, some stuff that he put out. He was systemizing a lot. So after a couple of years of studying the arts, so one guy went to, make a fighting art, Japan. The other guy went to this folk style grappling styles. All of them are different. For example, in Bulgaria, we're still doing this traditional wrestling that you actually wrestle on grass.
Okay.
But you would say it's a folk style, but it's so appreciated because wrestling is religion in Bulgaria. Almost, it's very.
What's that wrestling called?
It's called. It's literally to translate is like.
No, what is it in Bulgarian? So if I went to the local fair or festival where they're doing the grass wrestling, I'm going to compete in, or I'm going to go do the what?
It's called. I want to find the English words. It's.
No, I don't want English words. I want the Bulgarian words.
It's called burba. Borba. That's what means.
Borba.
Yeah, that's what means wrestling in Bulgaria.
Borba.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's, but you
Is
can.
it more prevalent in certain areas of Bulgaria?
There are areas like are doing it more, but most of it is in. There's certain areas that are better. Mostly the mountain guys.
Okay. Which is, can you tell me the cities or regions?
So one of the regions, and I have two guys, they're brothers, and one of them, Vladi, is the coach in my team there, and with his brother, like they both won because I was going to tell, if you win the tournament, you get a wife ram, male sheep.
Okay.
That's the word, you just like you have a male sheep and you normally eat it, So that's always that's the traditional word. You always get the ram.
Okay.
If you're first,
And
but
what was the region that they're from?
Q-Stendil.
Say that slowly.
Q,
Q,
stay,
stay,
Dil.
dill.
Yeah, that's where my team is now.
Okay.
And they're doing pretty good. So the guy who is coaching now there was my first professional fighter, and he was, I don't know, there's a wrestling school, Greco-Roman style, and they're pretty good. They're very classic school of wrestling at this particular city. It's a very small city, but it's a mountain city. They produce very good wrestlers. And the thing is with Vladi was, because of his Greco-Roman style, he was upright.
Mm-hmm.
He was not so down. So when he started fighting MMA as an amateur, they were thinking he's a kickboxer because of his upright stance,
Okay.
and they were trying to engage with him.
Okay.
But when you engage with 12 times, like national champion in wrestling, and you think he's a kickboxer, you fly.
Mm.
Yeah,
He was a long, lean guy?
skinny,
Yep.
long,
So very John Jones
absolutely,
in stature.
very.
And what weight was he?
When he was young, he was being about 75, 81
Okay. Kilos.
kilos. Yeah, he was on 81.
So
And-
not a small man.
No, but he was very coachable because he has this, as we said, like this grinding culture. And the thing is, like in this city, is I started my team there by, just absolutely by accident, because I went there to work,
Yep.
to do a project there, and
With your engineering.
with my engineering, and I was supposed to be there for 2 years. And I have a great friend there. We was together in the army. He's a wrestler, and in the army was training together. Just a great friend of mine. But when I went there, I was meanwhile I was fighting professionally or in MMA, and to train, I had to train with Sam. I was training with this friend of mine, and I was pretty known at this time because of my fighting. So we just went to a fitness, and they had a free room, and I asked them, can we use the room to train? They said, yeah, sure. And they just didn't ask me for money, just let me train there. I was training with this guy, Simeon. He's my godfather, like it's like this. We have a godfather. We have two godfathers. One is your spiritual godfather when you make baptism, like church-wise. He did it for me because he's a great friend of mine. I wanted him to be. And you have a godfather when you get married. So that's my national team coach in Sambo, Stoyan Saudinov, a legend in fighting sports in Bulgaria. So we was training with this guy. He was helping me, to prepare for my fights. And I remember the day, these guys came Vladi and some other guy. I don't remember because I didn't know them at that time. And they come and like they're very shy, with these mountain guys. They very shy guys, and they come and ask like, what are you guys doing? And I say, we're training MMA. And they was like, can we come? I say, yeah, guys, come and come and show up tomorrow.
This is how it works in Bulgaria.
And yeah, we will start training. And next day, they come 30 guys. And oh shit, because it was just training for me.
Because you're training in the mountains of Bulgaria.
The thing is, like, the thing in this, I think there's something in the small cities because nothing much happened there.
Yeah.
And these guys, they suddenly saw that they can actually train MMA. They was just only watching on like for UFC, and they it was so far for them. It was like something was happening in the city, like, and they just, these two guys with Wadi, and I don't know who else was on this first approach that they did.
We are in Sydney.
They say that. They say to his friend, and then everyone just like, oh, we can actually train MMA. They just show up, and I was like, oh, damn. And then, okay, and then next week just went to the city, both mats, because you only have like 4 squares of mats, to train with my friend. It's just like both mats, equip the gym, and that's how we started the team. And I named it Bully Team because I had 2 bulldogs at this time, and I was trying to figure out, because like, okay, like we trained for a while, and then was going to do a first competition, was grappling one. I said, okay, we have to name somehow, when you show up on the competition. And first I was thinking about Bulldog, but it doesn't really sound good. And then came Bully as a shorten. Bully has this double name, double meaning, like Bully as a small bulldog, and the same, like Bully, the stronger guy who beats the others.
Yeah, I wouldn't really call that's what a bully is, but
I know, but
has a negative connotation in my mind.
I know. The thing, I have a bit of issue here because he is very negative.
Yeah.
The bully, but it's really dear for me because we fight for that name, and we sweat and bleed for that name, so I would never change it.
Yeah, but no problem there.
And
I'm just telling you what...
I know, no. People tell me here very often, like...
I actually appreciate it too, because, you're originally not from this culture, so, you play by your own rules, right?
Yes.
And, truly,
that's what we do. That's what we do, isn't it?
Someplace else too,
yeah.
Which is probably more like here than where you come from. But it's interesting that, coming from a wrestling culture, I also, we talk about, it was like playing soccer, it was like playing football. It just existed.
Yeah.
And you didn't really think that much about it. It wasn't a big deal. It was just something you did it in school, you did it in gym class, you did it phys ed. And then some people were on the team and then worked hard at it, and that's what it was. And one more time, what was how do you, in Bulgarian wrestling?
Borba. Yeah. That's how it's called.
Can I spell that in English?
Yeah, B-O-R-B-A.
Borba.
Yeah, that's how we say wrestling.
I think finishing the chat with that Bulgarian word is very meaningful, because that's basically why you and I are sitting here having a chat in Sydney, Australia, on a Saturday evening before we have something to eat.
After spending all day dealing with the MMA and chatting 2 hours before we actually start recording it.
It is what it is. And it's a word that I didn't know before, and now I do know, and I thank you for that.
So I'm going to ask you one more thing before we wrap this one up. By your perspective now, what is worth fighting for?
What is worth fighting for?
Yeah.
To me, the most important thing that you would fight for is that pursuit of truth, whatever it is for you. And it can be anything. Can be your family, your whatever that's not yourself, but truly to learn what you are, and then not to quit on that until you physically don't need it anymore. So that's not an easy answer. It's not a clean answer. It's a little dirty, and sometimes I was referred to as a dirty fighter. I also profess to have the spirit animal of a rat, which means if you corner me, that's when I will fight the hardest. But so be it. Here we are, signing off. Peace.
Thank you, Coach. It was awesome.
Good.
Thank you for listening to the Fight Zone podcast. Subscribe in your podcast app to receive the next episode when I will meet you with Coach Hamish Robertson from Open MMA. We will talk about training while coaching, ethical sparring, importance of basics, and coaching kids under the youth rules of IMMAF.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.